everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're here today with episode 1919 of the Cabral Concept on our weekend edition of the show, which is the Cabral HouseCalls. So always look forward, as I say, to checking out what the community has to say, what's going on, of course, with their health, with their overall wellness, weight loss challenges, anti-aging challenges, family, in terms of children, what might be going on. So really anything goes in terms of overall mind, body health. Love being able to look at these questions and just give you really from over 2 decades of practice experience and working with hundreds of thousands of people inside of our practice, virtually and offline as well in Boston, Massachusetts, what I can say that we've seen in the past and what you may want to move towards in terms of testing or protocols, etc. Just keep in mind, of course, as I always say, that this is not to be construed as medical advice. Only your licensed medical doctor, your PCP, or specialist can provide medical-based advice. My job is to help you seek out the underlying root cause imbalances of your body, where by figuring that out and actually rebalancing those, then the body can't be sick, right? It can't be overweight. It can't age at a rapid rate. So let's figure out some of these questions and for the day. And I always go through them in the order that they came in. So today's coming in from March 28th, and this is from Ryan. And Ryan is saying, "Dear Dr. Cabral, I have had GI issues with taking supplemental oils, primarily CLA and most fish oil. Is there any way to circumvent this? Background, though, I've always struggled with fish oil. I've had my gallbladder removed fairly recently. My digestion did not take a..." It says tut. I don't know what that means. "For the worse, though the surgeon prepared me and warned me for such. I basically haven't noticed it being gone, and I've been on a high-fat diet with no issues. But I still figured the whole not having a gallbladder was pertinent info for you." Ryan, thanks for sharing this. And absolutely, yeah, having no gallbladder is certainly pertinent and certainly an issue, since many people need to supplement with supplemental ox bile going forward after having their gallbladder removed. Again, it's not medical advice, but I can tell you that many people have seen great benefit. The easiest way, so the difficult way to supplement with ox bile is take it 1 hour after every meal. All right, so that's the more challenging way. You have to remember it. It's a different time for supplements. The easiest thing to do is take some ox bile upon waking on an empty stomach and take some before bed. All right, that seems to be easier for most people. Now, that's your choice. Now, there's also another way, though, to help with fats and oils as well, and that's by simply taking 1 or 2 or 3 daily digestive enzymes. And that's because the daily digestive enzyme contains an enzyme called lipase. And that lipase will help to break down fats. I would also suggest just making sure you use a fish oil that's triglyceride bound. This is going to make it much more absorbable for the body. So with Echolife, we always use the triglyceride form. It's the kind that isn't going to get as oxidized, and it's going to be absorbed like almost like a methylcobalamin for B12. The body recognizes it. It knows that's what it looks like inside of whole food, and so it's much easier to absorb. So if you can eat a piece of salmon and not have any digestive issues, then you should be able to digest something like the Echolife fish oil and not have any, because it's a same fat that's basically used. We use, of course, wild Alaskan pollock. I shouldn't say of course, but we use wild fish, of course. That should be an of course with Echolife, since we use the highest quality products. But pollock is a more sustainable fish, and so that's what we use. So hopefully that's helpful, and thanks, Ryan, for writing in. And so those would be my recommendations, at least to start. Leanne is up next. "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I wanted to tap into your knowledge about something that I've noticed in myself. I have a feeling of fullness in my throat, like I always need to swallow. There isn't anything visible to note, and I can't think of any issues that makes it worse or better, and there doesn't seem to be a time of the day that affects it either. Do you have any ideas? Thank you again for your time and your work. I appreciate all that you do." All right, Leanne, let me point you in the right direction. I've done multiple shows on what's called Echolatia. And Echolatia is something that you can look up. Let me see if I can help you out real quick on the podcast. I don't know that I'm going to be able to find this just kind of like right off the bat, but you just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. We go to that little search box below the Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that. And we're just going to type in Echolatia. All right. So if we type in Echolatia, well, first we need to be able to spell it correctly. And I don't know that I'm spelling it correctly. So it's Echalasia. So now let's type in Echolatia, Stephen Cabral, into Google, since we're already in Google. Let's see if we come up with the show. We do episode 1813, episode 813, episode 884, episode 989, episode 1121. Okay, so let me repeat those for you. So this is for our friend Leanne. Episode 818. Sorry, I keep saying that one wrong. Let's take this from the top, Leanne. Episode 813, 884, 989, 1121. Okay, so you can just kind of pause, rewind if you need to write those down. And I'm just going to give you the gist of it, but I go more in depth on those shows. So Echolatia is something that I see quite often in my practice. And it always goes back to, not always, but 90+% of the time, a lower level stress or anxiety that's actually causing issues with the peristaltic movement in the esophagus, where the food actually moves down, as well as the lower esophageal sphincter, which is supposed to stay closed in the presence of food in the stomach, and then open with no food. Sometimes it can stay closed and not allowing the food to go down the esophagus. And also with Echolatia, sometimes that wave-like motion down our esophagus, which is about a foot long, does not always happen well. And so you feel like you might actually have something in the esophagus too. So those are just a couple. Another one that I could think of for you is postnasal drip. So essentially with allergies or sinus congestion or yeast or fungal overgrowth in the nose, you just get this mild irritation going to the back of the throat from essentially mucus buildup and moving from the sinuses down into the back of the throat. So just a couple to look into. And of course, I'm happy to do follow-ups as well. Pam's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I've been struggling getting immunotherapy shots for my seasonal allergies for 2 years. My allergy doctor feels that they are the only way to reduce my medication intake and build immunity against my highest allergens. As I listen to your podcast and learn about toxins, I'm wondering if I'm just adding toxins to my body with every shot. I receive results from my mycotoxin testing with high markers in the multiple mold species category. I'm currently finishing the CBO protocol and will be starting the mold protocol along with the CBO finisher. Do the benefits of immunotherapy outweigh the risks? Is it possible that my allergy to mold will be eliminated by the mold protocol? I'm not really clear on how they're connected. Thanks so much for your time. I've learned so much from you and look forward to future podcasts. Okay. Pam, thanks for writing in. This is a complicated question, but I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. So, immunotherapy shots, for people that don't know, is typically you have allergy testing done to environmental-based things such as grass and mold and pollen and dust and pet dander, etc. And whatever creates a larger wheel on the arm, if that's where you have your kind of testing done, then those are your greatest sensitivities, where you have essentially an IgE, IgA-based reaction to that. So then what an allergist will do is they'll formulate an allergy serum for you based on your sensitivity, and then they will gradually increase the dosage over time as you don't have any reaction. And then the goal is that over time, your body slowly essentially becomes desensitized to this particular, we'll call it antigen or sensitivity, and that there isn't a reaction necessarily to it. So you allow your body just going to build up its defenses and then kind of quiet its response. So that's typically how it works. Inside of a lot of these allergy injections, there can be some heavy metals. There can be also different stabilizers in there. I can't speak to the ones that you're using, so of course I don't know. There are, though, something that you may want to look into, which are sublingual allergy desensitization drops. Now, those are going to do the same thing, but they're taken sublingually, typically without the metals. You put them below, you put it under your tongue, you let it absorb through the capillaries under the tongue and the mouth into the bloodstream, and that can have the same effect. Now, I will let you know is that if you're sensitive to mold, they're oftentimes injecting small amounts of mold into the body to become desensitized to it. That can be very questionable because if you already have mold in your body, well, you're going to be sensitive because you have mold species in the body. So I definitely do recommend, again, I can't give you medical advice, but if it was me, I would definitely do the mold protocol for sure. I'd probably do the CBO protocol. I would do an intestinal cleanse, a detox, and then I would move to the mold protocol. And then, of course, during that time, during the mold protocol, I would do the CBO finisher because, Pam, hopefully you listened to my show, which I know that you may have, but you wrote in on March 29th, and the show was, let's see here. It was episode 1901, and it didn't come out until April 20th. The root cause of allergies begins and ends in the gut. So check that out show as well. All right. That was episode 1901. So Pam, hopefully that answers your question. Let's say my daughter's ever had really bad allergies. I'm not against the desensitization protocols. I would just make sure we fixed their gut, sealed their gut, just looked at overall sympathetic nervous system stress-based levels, just did a heavy metal detox if we needed to, mold protocol if we needed to, and then if there were still issues because of more of a genetic-based factor, then what I would do is I would do these sublingual drops, desensitization drops for my daughter. So that's my answer. And again, not medical advice, but it's what I would do. Okay. Andrew's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Do you know of any safe and effective ways to treat yeast overgrowth while pregnant? Yeah, we get this question quite a bit. So you know my thoughts on supplementation during pregnancy. Very conservative. I'm very, very conservative in that way because my number one goal is always do no harm, right? A true health practitioner, their main goal is do no harm, which is why I find it hilarious that in conventional medicine, they kind of stole that from the forefathers of natural medicine, and that's the oath that they do because you can't actually practice giving all of these pharmaceuticals and say do no harm. Like that's not the case. Now, do I believe in pharmaceuticals? I absolutely do. In acute-based circumstances and life-saving circumstances, 100%. I'm very happy that we have them. But, to give someone acid blockers instead of just for 2 weeks as what's stated by the companies, but you give it to them for a lifetime, well, that's certainly doing harm, right? So anyway, I have the same philosophy, and that's during pregnancy. A lot of herbs are just, you don't necessarily want to use them because herbs are medicine. Do you want to give medicine during pregnancy? Some of them can increase intrauterine contractions. So we just want to be more careful with herbs. Vitamins, minerals, all the amino acids, the omega-3s, all of that the body needs. So we want to use those. We just don't want to go overboard, right? We don't want to go overboard on those. So for pregnancy, I always recommend the daily foundational protocol level 2. So that's what I recommend. So that's the daily nutritional support. That is the daily fruit and vegetable blend. That's totally optional if they want to get more fruits and veggies in there. That's the omega-3, which is certainly needed for neural tube based development. And then there's the daily probiotic support. So that's a really nice formula right there. And that's what I recommend. And then for pregnant women, at least during preconception and first trimester minimum, is to add on an extra 500 micrograms of methylfolate, because you want to get your methylfolate, your folic acid, between 800 and 1,000 micrograms is typically what's recommended. And then during the last trimester, I definitely recommend iron. And iron is because most women are anemic, or at least functionally anemic, going into, let's say, after 30 weeks. And so that's what we do. That's what I've gotten really great results with. That's what my wife did. So that's what I recommend. That's what the science says is great. Now, typically, if you have yeast overgrowth, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to do the CBO protocol, right? So that's what we're going to do. But we don't do the CBO protocol while pregnant. And so what we may want to do for you, and again, if this was my wife asking this question, I would actually use something called the Clean Gut Probiotic instead of the daily probiotic support. And the Clean Gut Probiotic contains a special strain of a non-pathogenic yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii. And what Clean Gut Probiotic does is it helps push out pathogenic yeast and keep it moving. But it's much gentler. It's not the full CBO protocol, but it's a great anti-yeast-based probiotic formula. And so again, I'd feel very comfortable with the Clean Gut Probiotic. Okay, you could start at 1 capsule in the morning, and then if you felt fine after a week or two, you could do 1 capsule in the morning, 1 before bed. All right. Great question. Haley's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. My questions today are about varicose veins and general circulation. I was wondering what an actual imbalance would there be to cause varicose veins or spider veins and general circulation issues like this seem to be happening? Also, do you have any recommendations on supplements or protocols or devices or services, acupuncture, massage, that could help with varicose veins? Last question. The muscles of my lower legs, ankles are used a lot throughout the day, and my calves run pretty tight. Is it possible to tighten muscles, compress the veins, poor circulation? My background, I'm 31, professional dancer, teacher. Between work and spending time in nature with my dogs, I average 15 to 20,000 steps a day. Most of my work comes from tap dancing, which involves downward force. I average 12 to 15 hours a week of tap dancing. I've noticed varicose veins, some spider veins on my lower legs. My fingers and toes usually run pretty cold, but they're also clammy a lot of the time. Even my body is warm. Thank you. All right. A lot of great information here, and all of that is very, very helpful. So but Haley, what I would just want to say, and I want to say this for everybody, because you wrote in on, let's see, March 30th. And of course, I'm going to answer your question. Happy to do that. But if you go to StephenCabral.com or even just Dr. Google, and you type in Stephen Cabral and varicose veins, you'll be able to find my previous shows in varicose veins. So if I just go to StephenCabral.com/podcast and type in, I'll just type in varicose. I'll put that in quotations, and let's see what comes up. All right. So 1324, 1317, 890, 484. All right. So I've got a bunch of shows for you to listen to: 484, 890, 1317, 1324. Now, I will also say, though, that, well, let me start with the easy first. Now, this is never the end-all, be-all. However, just make sure you're taking good fish oil, okay, omega-3s. Make sure you're taking something like Florafilm. I have a bottle right here. I've been talking a lot about this product lately, which is a good proteolytic enzyme-based formula. 2 in the morning, 2 before bed. Then Butcher's Broom is one, and is it Hawthorne? For whatever reason, it's escaping my memory right now, but I will have mentioned it on previous shows. Butcher's Broom, and it might come to me towards the end of the show. Is it Hawthorne? It could be Hawthorne. All right. But you'll find it on those previous shows as well. Those are been known for to be great for circulation for many, many years. Okay. The cold hands and the cold feet is the giveaway. So even though you're doing all these steps, which is great, it's most likely a circulatory issue. You have cold hands and you have cold feet. We see this a lot of the time with sympathetic nervous system dominance. So whenever the body is shifted to more of a fight or flight based state, maybe that is just internal tension, stress, maybe it's from inflammation from heavy metals or infections or whatever it might be. Maybe it's the stress of doing a lot of tap dancing, whatever's stressful for the body, it pulls the heat, actually, the more of the blood to more of the core. And you lose the flow into the smaller capillaries, because think of it as like a massive river basin right here in the chest. And as it flows out, okay, gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until we have these tiny little capillaries in our eyes and in our fingers and our feet. And what happens is, as those start to get pinched a little tighter, the blood flow doesn't flow as well there. So there's a couple of things that you could do. One is at the end of the day, putting your hips against a wall and putting your legs straight up the wall. It's a really nice one to do for 5 minutes for anybody to de-stress. So one, it's very de-stressing. In traditional Chinese medicine and yoga, Ayurveda, they say that that reverse blood flow from the blood flowing down is actually great for nourishing the kidneys and the adrenals. So that's either way, it's not a bad way to think about it. But also what we want to do is we want to get blood flow going to those feet and hands as well. So we need to find things, most likely breathing techniques that are going to relax the sympathetic nervous system. So box breathing is a great one. I've done many shows on that. I've done great shows on breathing, interviews with James Nestor, with Brian McKenzie, with Patrick McEwen as well. So those are all under the Conversations with Cabral. Let me see if I can give you maybe one more tip. I would definitely foam roll your calves, and I would do ankle circles. So basically 12 in each direction, big circles with your big toe, and keeping your feet pointed down straight to open up some ankle mobility. And then you can do some foot pumps, which is just your ankle straight, and then your foot forward, toes up, toes forward, toes up, toes forward. And you do that about 15, 20 times just to manually pump the blood from the gastroc, which is the lower leg, back up so that the blood is not pooling in the veins, the varicose veins. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful to get started. And of course, like I said, many more shows in the past that I stated that you can check out on varicose veins as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Much appreciated. Of course, if any of the answers were helpful, please do feel free to share them with anyone you believe they could serve. And I'll be back tomorrow answering more of our community's questions. Have an amazing weekend.